Hello, my friends. Welcome to another episode of Deep True Crime. I'm Manny Rodriguez. In today's episode, we are covering the duck sauce killer, who he killed, why he killed him, and where is the duck sauce killer today. Thank you for joining me, my friends. The whole purpose of this channel is to keep you updated on what could go wrong in this crazy world. Because you see, it doesn't matter how safe you try to be, there are a lot of angry people. And sometimes when someone doesn't get their way, it haunts them till the violent streak comes out of them. And that's what happened in this particular case. Let's go ahead and dive into it, my friends. Hey, if this is the type of content you like to follow, make sure you hit on that subscribe button. That way you get notified anytime I upload content. And hey, if you got any requests, please comment below. Let's go ahead and dive into it. A hard-working Chinese food delivery man was shot and killed while making a delivery in Queens, New York on April 30th, 2022. And right after that shooting, cops quickly had their eye on a gunman. Cops quickly had their eye on a disgruntled customer who had multiple disputes with the restaurant over his orders. Zhiwen Yan, seen here in this picture with his beautiful wife, was on his scooter and making a delivery near 108th Street and 67th Drive in Forest Hills, which is a part of Queens. Around 9:30 p.m. April 30th, when he was shot in the chest and mortally wounded. Right away, cops were eyeing a 50-year-old customer who had an ongoing beef with the staff at Green Wall on Queens Boulevard. It is said that this gunman also was a problem for Great Wall back in January and twice vandalizing their vehicles. One witness told police the angry customer drove off from the Forest Hills restaurant in an older model Lexus RX-3 SUV after one encounter. This was the same type of vehicle spotted fleeing the scene of the shooting on April 30th, 2022. And at the time that he was shot and killed, you can see his scooter right here in this picture. Again, this was while he was making a food delivery in Forest Hills. This is what I mean. You never know how bad someone can take their anger, whether it's road rage, whether it's someone who just loses that one moment. And shortly after this, even though they had a man on his radar, no one was arrested yet. Yan leaves behind a wife and 3 kids ages 2, 12, and 14. Rest in peace, Zhiwen Yan. His wife even struggled during a press conference to hold herself together because her life has been changed forever. Mr. Yan came to the U.S. in 2001. He had been in the country over 20 years before he was brutally murdered by an upset customer. Zhiwen Yan, who lived in Queens, he was found unconscious at the scene after police responded to a 911 call, and he was rushed to Elmhurst Hospital. He would later be pronounced dead at the hospital. And when this shooting first happened, it was thought that it was just a random act of road rage while he was on a delivery run for the Chinese restaurant Great Wall. And this was according to a GoFundMe page that was set up at the time. Now, obviously, since more has come out, it no longer says on the GoFundMe page a random act of road rage, because it wasn't a random act. Someone wanted to hurt him as an employee of Great Wall. One of the co-workers at Great Wall said that an irate customer had been harassing employees for months. So it almost sounds like it could have been anyone at that bad time if they worked there. So maybe he wasn't directly targeted, but they wanted to make sure that everyone at Great Wall, or he wanted to make sure that everyone at Great Wall restaurant felt this pain. And the coworker said that this customer slashed the boss's tires one time, and one night in December or January, he pulled a gun on my boss We reported him to the police and he stopped bothering us at that time. A former neighbor of his even said he was super nice and worked so hard. Another person said when I talked to him, he was always nice and he laughed. And this person lived in the same Elmhurst building as Yan and his family did. Cancel that. Another person said when I talked to him, he was always nice and he laughed. And she even added, I felt like I had a heart attack when I heard he died. I can't believe this. I'm just so sad. I'm heartbroken. And Yan, he migrated from China more than 20 years ago and he delivers for the eatery 7 days a week. The goal of the GoFundMe page was 100,000. They have raised 221,000 to help the family. Wow. Even one anonymous donor gave $5,000. And you think about it, I think GoFundMe takes about 30% of that. Boy, GoFundMe sure makes a lot of money off this stuff sometimes, huh? Right away, the cops were looking for surveillance footage in any parts of the neighborhood that they can find. You know, in the neighborhood, they started pouring so much love and so much memories into this gentleman. I mean, they loved this guy. They appreciated everything that he brought to them and the smile and the energy that he was there. He loved what he did and he was a family first. He wanted to support his family and people loved him for this. You can see this sign right here. Forest Hills lost a beautiful soul. Zhiwen Yan, rest in peace, my friend. Thank you for your service. You will be greatly missed. We love you. My friend, you will be missed. People were heartbroken over this. And they even know him as to being on his scooter quite a bit. And that's what I mean. This is a heartbreaking story for everyone involved, for the children, the 3 children, for his wife. Why would a senseless act like this over what is said to be duck sauce? Because they say that he may have been killed in a simmering beef over duck sauce. The owner of the Chinese restaurant, he said that this disgruntled customer, who at this time police were looking for in order to question him, had previously been in a rage over the amount of duck sauce he got with an order. Kai Yang, who is the owner of the Great Wall on Queens Boulevard, he said that the duck sauce dispute occurred late last year in 2021, and it sparked a series of increasingly disturbing encounters with this angry customer. He says that in November of 2021, the 50-year-old man came in to pick up his order. The owner says that in November of 2021, he came in to pick up his order. We have duck sauce out, serve yourself. And Yang says that the man takes all of it, full bin, entire bin. He takes his order and leaves. He came back and says angry, I need more duck sauce. I say, okay, it's here. Help yourself. He says, I give him more. He say, no, I want my money back. I say, sorry, I can't take your order back after, and I give you more duck sauce. He calls police. They came. They asked me if I can refund his money. I say, no, I cannot. And the owner said after that, his car started getting damaged. He says it was a new car, 2021 Honda CRV, around back, tires slashed 3 times. He says he starts parking in front so he can see what's going on. And they say they see this man on January 28th damaging the car. And I come out and I say, no. And the guy pulls a gun on him. The owner calls the police and he fills out a police report. And the owner said that when he pulled out the gun, he was wrestled to the ground by his employees. Among those who tackled the employee was Zhiwen Yan, the 45-year-old delivery man who was shot dead. But despite repeated calls to police over time about the angry customer, he was never charged. How do you bring out a gun and not get charged? That's interesting. The owner called so many times to the police. And another employee also confirmed the owner's account of the disturbing encounters with this irate customer, and even recalled how the man only got more daring and dangerous over time. The co-worker said sometimes he'd be waiting around outside. He'd say to the boss and to the delivery guy and to one of the chefs, "I remember you. I remember you." My gosh, this dude lost it. And the worker said that after reporting the gun incident, there were no more problems until this. And this shooting occurred only a half mile from the restaurant. They were even referring to this man as the Terminator. He's in and out quickly. We had issues with him. He always wears those dark wraparound sunglasses. The worker even says he's a hoarder. He was grabbing people's packages, and when they called him on it, he argued, yelled, denied it. We got cameras all over the building. And while this guy was on the loose, the boss, the co-workers, they were all worried. And the wife, she's wanting justice. At this time, she's like, I don't understand why more wasn't done before this happened. She even said in her press conference, New York City, you owe me a life. You owe me a husband. You owe an explanation to the Chinese community. I want to know why since last November, his boss and colleagues have been threatened multiple times and nobody could protect them. I want to know why. She says, I want the law enforcement to do their job as quickly as possible and arrest the killer and prosecute him. I hope that justice can be done so that my husband can rest in peace. She even says he was only 45 years old. He should have been able to watch his children grow up, but everything ended. The criminal, the killer, used one bullet, brutally ended his life. And then finally, an arrest had been made. On June 1st, the irate customer who gunned down a hard-working Chinese food delivery man in a cold-blooded attack in Queens, which again stemmed from a dispute about duck sauce that led to a months-long reign of terror, was finally busted on June 1st, 2022. Glenn Hirsch, the 50-year-old, was picked up on a warrant at his Briarwood apartment around 8 p.m. that day and charged with murder as well as criminal possession of a loaded firearm in connection to the April 30th slaying of the 45-year-old Zhiwen Yan. And the question comes up, it's like, why did it take so long? It seems like right out of the gate, they had a suspect, right? There was a lot of things that was pointing to this Glenn Hirsch. NYPD Lieutenant John Russo, he said that while this case seemed simple at the onset, because we did develop the suspect early on, developing enough evidence to rise to the level of probable cause took some time to do it. Why did it take from April 30th until now, when at the face, it seemed we knew who he was right away? Well, we want to ensure we get the right person and we have a prosecutable case. And cops share that Hirsch was caught on surveillance footage circling the Queens restaurant for an hour on the night of the shooting, then seen following Yan in his car before he shot him dead. Police said that they found 8 guns at his estranged wife's home when they executed a search warrant. They said that Hirsch and his ex-wife had parted ways amicably, although a neighbor said Hirsch showed up often and described him as an a-hole. And the neighbor said, I've heard him a bunch of times yelling at her. He's an a-hole. I've just seen that guy treating her like shit. He speaks very loud. These walls are not the thickest walls in the world, so they hear everything. He did say, I never saw bruises on her, but that lady took a lot of verbal abuse from the guy. It makes me want to move. And here Hirsch was in his car when he spotted Yan and followed him to a stoplight where he got out of his car and opened fire. And he had just dropped off an order in the neighborhood when he was killed. And even on January 28th of 2022, Hirsch had went back to the restaurant, walks into the restaurant, asking workers, do you remember me? Before flashing a gun and slashing the tires on Yang's new car. And the owner of the place said he can't even go near duck sauce after this murder. You know, he says he was barely staying afloat, struggling to find delivery workers, and can't even go near duck sauce now. He says, I don't want to touch it. I can't because it brings back bad memories. And Yang, he visibly jumped back when a photographer asked the owner if he could pose for a photo holding a duck sauce container. And Yang even said that when it comes time to refilling the container with duck sauce packets at the front of the eatery, his employees do it. And after the arrest, the owner was relieved that this guy was finally arrested, but it wasn't the end of it. And so when Hirsch was finally arrested, he was charged with second-degree murder, weapons possession, stalking, and menacing, and ordered to be held without bail. You know, the owner of the restaurant, he felt like Yan was his brother. He felt like they were family. This hit the owner very hard, as well as Yan's family. And he referred to him as his brother. He says, I lost my brother. I will remember him for the rest of my life. He is going to be in my heart forever. And the Great Wall, they even shared a message for the community. We would like to thank the entire community for the enormous support during this time. We are thankful for everyone who has visited us since we reopened and continue to patronize the restaurant. We continue to mourn the passing of Zhiwen Yan and hope the police capture the murderer as soon as possible. Please contact the police with any information you have. Now, obviously, they did catch up with Glenn Hirsch shortly after this letter was put up. And then come to find out, this irate customer who killed the Chinese food delivery man had stuffed his queen's fridge full of the sweet stuff. And they make this discovery while they were searching for guns at his Briarwood home. They make this bizarre discovery that he has all this sweet sauce already, because they look at the refrigerator and there were all these condiments. His whole fridge was filled with duck sauce. And they said it was not just duck sauce, it was condiments, duck sauce, ketchup. It was weird, is how they refer to it as. They shared that he's a hoarder. And then, to the surprise of everyone, Glenn Hirsch was freed on $500,000 bail after his brother pays the bail. And so he was able to remain free while awaiting trial unless he violates any type of guidelines. And so then Glenn Hirsch is seen arriving at his apartment building after posting the $500,000 bail. And it didn't matter what threats the judge said to him, which means stuff like anywhere you go that is outside your apartment is going to be restricted in terms of the time that you leave, the time that you remain out, and the time that you return. He says, you go outside of the area, the location, if you end up in Manhattan, other areas of Queens, if you end up in Brooklyn or anywhere except the direct route to where you're supposed to go, the sheriff's department will pick you up and bring you back before me, and I will remand you. That's what the judge told him. And the judge tells him, and no matter how much money you have, you will not be coming out of jail until this case is over. And he was also warned to stay away from the Great Wall restaurant where Yan worked, and Lulu Laundry about a block away where his wife runs a laundry business, and can't go within 1 mile of any Big Apple port of entry. He had an ankle monitor, and the judge warned him that if that thing goes off, we'll get you. And as I mentioned before, the wife of Glenn Hirsch, having all those guns in her home, she was arrested for weapons possession. Dorothy Hirsch was arrested following a morning raid at her Briarwood home on 84th Road on June 3rd, 2022, which is 2 days after her husband Glenn Hirsch was charged in the April 30th shooting death of Zhiwen Yan. When authorities were conducting a search warrant, they seized 8 handguns and ammunition from Dorothy Hirsch's home. And according to police records, the couple lived in separate homes with Glenn Hirsch residing nearby in Jamaica. And so Dorothy, she was charged with 8 counts of criminal possession of a weapon. And I tell you, when they released him on bail, people were upset for good reason. And so the people who lived in the co-op building, they were upset with the Queen's attorney for allowing him to return home. The people in his building would be upset. They have a good reason to be upset because this is a dangerous, angry man. And of course, the owner of the restaurant, once he's released, now they're living in fear. And he even says, I am extremely disappointed that the court allowed the defendant to be bailed. Everyone who works in Great Wall Restaurant is living in fear now. And also the families of Zhiwen Yan, who couldn't believe the suspect will be back to our community again. Even though the suspect will not be as free as before, we still have concern that there might be some kind of revenge happening. Therefore, I desperately hope the law enforcement departments could protect us, protect our community. He is a clear and present danger to the entire Forest Hills community. Why is he allowed to be out on bail? He is a threat to the community. And they were still doing the deliveries. And of course, they're going to be worried that Hirsch could be among those calling in to the store. And the owner says, I don't know who is putting in the orders. It could be him. If he calls, he won't say it's him calling. After the arrest, people came to support me with orders. Now they don't come to my restaurant because they are scared. They don't want to come to our restaurant. I need the police to help me to protect. If people are not here, my staff are scared. If police are not here, my staff are scared. They don't want to work. We are scared. It is not safe. He should be in jail so police don't have to invest in protecting us. In July, the district attorney lowers the weapon charges against Hirsch's wife because she was hit with over a dozen weapon charges in June of 2022 when they raided her home and turned up a stockpile of guns and ammo following her husband's arrest. But the DA did drop 8 counts of criminal possession of a weapon after Hirsch's lawyer moved to dismiss them, stating that the 8 guns recovered belonged to her husband. She is still facing 5 counts of criminal possession of a weapon as well as lesser related charges. Her bail was reduced from $150,000 to $30,000. And according to her lawyer, they say that she didn't know the firearms were there. He said investigators searched her apartment on June 3rd because they believed Glenn, who is facing charges of his own, because they believe Glenn Hirsch may have stashed the murder weapon there. And her lawyer said that apparently didn't occur, but they found among his items in his closet a stash of guns messily wrapped up in plastic bags and boxes. While out on bail before his court appearance, he shot himself at his home ahead of his morning hearing in Queens Supreme Court. He was found dead on the couch wearing rubber gloves with the gun in his hand and the radio blaring to the point where it could be heard by cops outside the door. It is said that he had meticulously prepared to kill himself. He put plastic over the couch before pulling the trigger, and a typewritten suicide note several pages long lay at his feet. Hirsch had emailed the lengthy note to his lawyers, prosecutors, and others involved in the case, denying murdering Zhiwen Yan on April 30th amid his feud with the restaurant over duck sauce. In his letter, he says, "This is my dying declaration." His lawyer says he left a long note, but essentially he became overwhelmed by the press coverage and the media attention and the rush to vilification, and he didn't take care of his mental health, which is obviously something he needed to do, and he became depressed and suicidal. Hirsch also tried to exonerate his wife, Dorothy Hirsch, over her arrest in late June when an early morning raid turned up 8 handguns and ammunition at her home. He insisted in the letter that the weapons belonged to him and she had no knowledge of them. He wrote in the note that he knew he was going to be charged with weapons raps, during the Friday hearing and would likely be sent back to jail because the guns were linked to him through DNA. He said he wasn't willing to sit in a cell for years and didn't want to fight the gun charges from behind bars. And the note was said to have a bunch of long tangents about other cases heard in Queens County too. Well, Mr. Hirsch, that does not explain why you were seen in surveillance footage circling Great Wall in your car and then tailing the delivery man to his next food drop. Sorry, I'm not buying that. And this is not justice. Even though he killed himself, this is not justice for the family. This is not justice in my mind at all. Even the owner of the restaurant, he said, I wanted Glenn to go to court and for him to say why he killed my brother. I wanted him to talk. Tell everybody why he wanted to kill me and my family too. Because Hirsch did threaten the owner. And he said he was going to kill his family. So Hirsch, your letter is, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. Jennifer Wu, who is the lawyer for Yan's kin, told the Post his family is in shock over Glenn's suicide and that his widow doesn't even know what to say at this point. Wu said the shock relates to what a waste to kill someone and then kill yourself. 2 lives lost. I think there is the initial shock of, how do I seek justice now? But that isn't the primary concern. The primary concern is another life is lost. It's the shock of death. And even after this, one of Glenn Hirsch's neighbors, a father of 2 young boys who lives on the same floor as Hirsch in his Briarwood apartment building, said Friday he was upset that the suspect was allowed to return home and gain access to a gun. My question is, how did he have a gun? Because they checked his place. What is to say he wouldn't shoot someone singing in the hallway? The man also said, I'm glad he is gone. He is a coward. Look what he did for duck sauce. I just feel relieved. I can have my kids go down the hall and drop the garbage out now. I was scared to have them go. You know what I mean? So, how did Glenn Hirsch get a gun? After all the guns were taken from his wife's, all the guns were taken from his home, where did he have a gun stashed at? Like, how did he get another gun? He had to have this gun stored somewhere where no one knew it, or someone helped him with this. Because he couldn't even leave his apartment without permission. Well, my friends, now you know about the duck sauce killer who later killed himself. I'm Manny Rodriguez. Thank you for joining me. Please stay safe out there. Be aware of your surroundings. Be alert. We can be too trusting sometime. Be careful, my friends. Thank you for joining me and have an amazing day. Peace.